Welcome to the latest episode of Exertis Enterprise Unplugged. I'm Adam Blackwell, the General Manager for our White Box Server Division, and this is Steve Cowley, our Director of Sales for Europe. Today, we're going to cover a little bit of a background on Steve. We're going to talk about the shape of our business in Europe. We're going to mention that dirty word Brexit, and we're going to talk a little bit about the distribution channel in Europe today. So, Steve, tell your huge audience about your existing role today.
Well, thanks for the introduction. My name's Steve Cowley and I'm the Sales Director of Exertis Enterprise Europe, which means I'm currently responsible for our 6 non-UK regions. So we have teams in Sweden, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Italy and Germany.
Great. And where were you prior to Exertis Enterprise?
Well, prior to Exertis Enterprise, this was actually, I'm still at the company that I went to straight from university. So I left university and went to a company called Hammer, and Hammer was then bought and sold and has merged into what we now know as Exertis Enterprise. And when I started my job, I was an apprentice salesperson. And way back then in 2001, I was in what was called the volume team, and I was selling IDE and SCSI drives. And after a few years, I became a sales manager of the volume team. And after a few years, even after that, I became manager of the whole UK sales team. So all the sales teams merged together, and I was managing that. And then in 2015, I had the opportunity to get involved with our European business. So obviously jumped at the opportunity, and now I work with all of our non-UK offices.
Great. Great answer. Okay, so your team in Europe, you've got quite a large team now. Where did it start, and what is the shape of it now?
It was actually one of our major disc vendors way back in 2005. They came to us and they said, look, we've got lots of distributors in Europe, but we've got none that are quite like Hammer, so none that are focusing on just enterprise and none that are focusing on value add. So it was actually this disc drive manufacturer that told us about a bit of a gap in the market for us. So back in 2005, our European business literally started with one desk on the UK sales floor. We had an Italian lady named Gabby, we had a German chap and a Dutch chap, and they started based on the UK sales floor, and they were selling into mainland Europe. And a year later in 2006, it grew and we opened up our first office in Stockholm. And since then we've got 6 offices across Europe. So the Swedish one, as I mentioned, is Stockholm. The Dutch one is in Hoofddorp. The Belgium office is in Mechelen. The German office is in Munich. The French team are down near Bordeaux, and the Italian team are near Bologna.
Great, thank you. So obviously you're very passionate about what you do. You're very passionate about your team. Tell us a little bit about why your team is special.
It's the people that make the team special. In distribution, you need a bit of flexibility, and you can't really pigeonhole what we do. And it's the people within the team that allow us that flexibility. They take the customer away from that pigeonhole of the process and the procedure. And it's just the free thinkers that we've got in our people that actually make it special for us.
Okay, and you've managed a UK team, you've managed teams within the UK, and now you manage across Europe. Tell us a little bit about the difference between managing a UK team and a European team.
Well, the UK team was one region, and today I'm managing 6 regions, and 6 regions means 6 cultures, and each culture has a subculture built within it as well. And whatever we're trying to do to approach the market in each region, we really rely on the local country leaders to almost put a filter on our message, almost like a cultural filter. So we're still delivering the same message, but it's really important to us that it's delivered in the way that is unique to that country, because the UK way of delivering something into Belgium is not the right way. The Italian way of delivering a message into Sweden is not the right way. So it's really important that we're empowering our people, especially these leaders in our European offices, to apply their knowledge and make sure that we are sending the right message. Because the fastest thing I learned is the UK way is not the way to do it in all of these different regions, and that really needs to be appreciated to deliver that value.
Great, okay. So, Brexit, a challenging time for everyone. Tell us a little bit about how Brexit affected your customers.
Well, pre-Brexit, our customers and our partners across Europe, they would buy from Exertis Enterprise UK. We'd ship to them from Exertis Enterprise UK. So Brexit presented a bit of a challenge for us, as we could see a lot of restrictions coming. So if we'd have carried on without making any changes, our customers across Europe would have had to, there'd have been importing of goods involved, exporting, clearing of goods, endless delays in customs. So in the run-up to Brexit, what we did, we opened up a warehouse in Den Bosch in the Netherlands, and we adapted our Dutch sales office into a sort of fully fledged running distribution organisation. So there was a challenge in the start, in the beginning, and today there is no challenge because all of our customers across Europe, they're now invoiced by our Dutch entity. They receive shipments within the EU from our Dutch warehouse. But the best thing of all is they've still got to keep the same account managers that dealt with them pre-Brexit, now that they do post-Brexit. So there's no restrictions at all. But it did produce a challenge for us in the run-up to it.
But one we overcame and ultimately had no impact on customers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well done. So in previous Unplugged editions, both Tom and Jason have both talked a little bit about what value meant to them individually, and what does it mean to you?
Value's quite simple to me. Value's about understanding what the customer needs. It's about being able to adapt to those needs, and then it's about having the flexibility to deliver upon those needs. Now, if you look at the distribution model of a broadline distributor compared to a value-added distributor like us, a broadline distributor is about having the right price, having the stock, and having the logistics to make sure that that's delivered in a timely fashion, and then probably having an e-commerce site to enable it. Now, if that was all the demands that the channel needed, that'd be fine. But and I know the channel needs a hell of a lot more flexibility than that, and they do need a lot more value. I mean, if you look at the value that we offer today, for some customers we flash and de-stroke the hard disk drives in our lab before we send it out to them. Some customers we fully configure and optimize their server storage solutions. Some customers see value in us putting their own bespoke label on the packaging or changing the packaging. Some customers, we put their logo on a bezel that goes on the front of the server. And some customers, value to them is even as simple as their warehouse can't take a metal pallet, so we simply transfer the goods from a metal pallet to a wooden pallet. So in answer to your question, I think it's quite simple. Value is understanding what the customer needs, having the ability to adapt to it, and then having the flexibility to actually deliver on that.
Okay, so you've been with the business a long time. What would you say are some of your proudest achievements, and then what would you say is your greatest?
I think achievements for me are things that I can look back on with a certain degree of job satisfaction. I mean, if I go back to my early days, I can think of my first sale I made after 2 days cold calling when I sold 2 Panasonic CD writers. That was my proudest moment at the time.
Can you remember how much you sold them for?
Yes, £79 each. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I can remember big deals that have gone through myself or my team. But really, I'd have to say the thing that I'm most proud of is our sales academy. Now, our sales academy, it started when I was an apprentice, and my boss, Robin Feasy, he taught me how to sell, he taught me the techniques, he taught me how to add value, and he taught me all about the industry. And what I did was simply repackage this into a 2-week training course where week 1 we spend learning how to sell, learning how to speak to a customer, really learning what value is, and the second week we learn about the market, the different vertical channels, and the technology. And that culminates after 2 weeks in salespeople that are starting their career and want a fully fledged career as a salesperson. They're then ready to hit the phones and start speaking to our customers. And if you look today at some of the most successful people within our organisation, I'm really proud to say that they've come through my academy as well. If you look at the Scotts, the Sarahs, the Johnnies, these all came through my academy, and I'm immensely proud of that. And even after I left the UK team and focused on Europe, the next UK sales manager, he took the academy and he developed it and he evolved it as well. So, it made version 2 and 3, and some of the most successful people that we have today came through that academy as well. So for me, I think that's definitely the thing I'm most proud of.
Good answer. And you owe it all to Robin Feasey if he's watching here tonight. Thank you, Robin. So you've worked with some special characters over the last 23 years. I know a lot of them. I'm imagining a lot of them will have been mentors to you. Tell us a little bit about what you learnt from them over that period.
I've worked with some fantastic people over the past 23 years that I've been at the company. Some really good, charismatic people. Like I mentioned, Robin Feasey, he was my first mentor. He taught me how to sell, and he was one of the best salespeople I've met. The original owners of Hammer, Paul Sangster and Steve Easterbrook, these guys really taught me the value of making a decision for the right reasons. Then really I'd have to say the biggest mentor for me, who gave me most guidance, was Paul Matravers. Now Paul was one of the company owners of Hammer back in 2005. He sold the business successfully to Exertis in 2016, and then he retired after that. And Paul's one of the most charismatic people, and I know you know him as well as I do, Adam. Very charismatic, larger than life figure, bold, big, brash. A real larger-than-life personality. And Paul was I was lucky to work with him. We were almost tied at the hip for 10 years where we ran the UK sales team together. And, despite all of Paul's big, loud personality, he taught me that the most important trait you can have in this industry is if you actually keep your mouth closed and listen to what the customer needs, that's the most important thing you can do. And Paul was the best at doing that. He was absolutely fantastic. In fact, today, I still have Post-it notes stuck to the side of my monitor with Paul Matravers quotes on them, and they still ring true as much as they do today as they did back then when he said. One of Paul's quotes would be, if you don't understand your customer, you cannot sell to them. And completely true. Another one of Paul's quotes was, if you listen and you ask the right questions, you'll get what you need to know from the customer. And 100% true today, and still live by these mantras.
Explain a little bit about why you can't sell, or why you believe you can't sell to your customer unless you know them.
You need to understand how your customer ticks, you need to understand how their business works, and you need to understand what's important to them. Where do they have issues? Where do they need to see more value? Where do they need to see more flexibility? And if we assume that we know what they want, then we're making a mistake. That's why we have to listen and understand to exactly what it is they need. And in fact, Paul was also a fantastic coach. This guy had not been on a training course in his entire life, but he was very good and a very good natural coach. I'd mull over a problem for days, and in my mind, my perception was this was an unsolvable problem. And I remember going to sit with Paul to talk over the problem, and he had a big Chesterfield sofa next to his desk, and I'd sit in the sofa and I'd pour my heart out to him for 10 minutes. And just by the process of him prodding me with certain questions, he would try and get me to solve the problem. So after 5 minutes, just by provoking me and saying the right things and asking me the right questions, I'd have solved the problem. And I always remember walking away feeling bewildered that I've just mulled over that for 2 days. The answer was in my head all the time, and all Paul had to do was poke me and prod me, and I'd solve the problem. Very clever. Very clever man.
Yeah, good guy. Okay, so moving on slightly, what do you hope your legacy will be at Exertis Enterprise?
I'll have to refer back to the academy again. I think if when I'm long gone the academy's still running, that would be great. And today I still get a lot of job satisfaction when I walk through the sales floor and I hear someone on the phone, talking to a customer or talking to a prospective customer, and they're regurgitating a line that I've written probably before they were born, or they're speaking to a customer, fact-finding them in a way that I've designed. They're still doing it today. So if salespeople within this organisation are still doing it after I'm long gone, I think that would be a legacy that I'd be proud of.
Yeah, that'd be a nice one, wouldn't it? So great, so we've learned a little bit about your career, about how you got to where you are today, about the current structure of the business and what you perceive to be value. But tell us a little bit about the Steve outside of Exertis Enterprise.
The Steve outside of Exertis. It's nothing too exciting, unfortunately. I'm a Manchester United supporter, and I also support my local team, which is Frimley Green, and I go to watch them every Saturday. 2 daughters, Ava and Sienna, which is what my life is about nowadays. People may not know I'm a massive music fan, really passionate about music, and the Gallagher brothers are my sweet spot.
Are you going to see them?
No, I didn't get tickets, unfortunately, but I have seen them many times over the years.
Why did you not get tickets?
I queued, but I was kicked out of the queue, so it didn't happen, unfortunately. But I don't care. I've seen them many times.
All right. Tell us a little about your DIY skills, Steve, because I've heard they're legendary.
Legendary might be a way of describing them, but yeah.
I've seen the videos you send me.
Yeah, the ones that I've shoved down your throat, absolutely. Yeah, I do have a penchant for DIY, and I don't believe that you should get someone in to do it when you could tackle it yourself. So yeah, I'll have a go at everything.
You're pretty
really.
handy, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll have a go.
Yeah. Okay. We've learned a little bit about your career, how you got to where you are today, and some of the legacy you want to leave. We've also learned a little bit about you as a person, what you're like outside of work. On a final note, some advice to some of our new starters out there. What's the advice that you would give them day one walking into this place as part of our academy?
Well, new academy people, new sales people, this job isn't as complicated as it sounds. You need to have the mentality of keeping it as simple as you possibly can. You can easily start to overcomplicate it. We're dealing with some really advanced enterprise technology here, but we've got a fantastic team of people that do understand all the intricacies of that technology. As long as you keep it simple and you can understand what the customer's looking for, you've got a team around you that'll support you for that. So don't overcomplicate it and keep it as simple as possible.
Great, good answer. That's it from me. Thanks for joining us on Exertis Unplugged. See you next week.
Thank you.